Are you being honest about what it truly costs you to acquire a comic book? Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open not one but two comic book orders that I placed with Atomic Avenue from the same seller, just received about a month apart. And before I get into the unboxing of those two orders, what occurred to me as I was sort of preparing for this unboxing, and I do that by entering the order details into my spreadsheet tracking cataloging system thing, and I've been redoing it and really taking a look and making sure that the data is accurate and that I'm tracking the conditions of the books and then looking up the appropriate value based on those conditions and just making sure that all of my data is accurate. And there's not a lot that's changed or not a lot to talk about in that sense, but what occurs to me when I do this is when I'm trying to factor in the total cost of the book. In orders such as these that I'm going to unbox in this video, I will look at cheaper books that I would consider to be value picks, and these are orders that I've placed online where I've unlocked free shipping, there's no tax, and I've essentially placed the order right from this chair at this desk. So when I'm looking at the total cost to acquire each book, I do take into account whether or not I've paid tax and shipping, if there's any sort of bag and board fees, or there's any other sort of weird, or with Mile High, there's insurance. So I really try and factor in exactly what it costs to acquire a book. But as I was sort of browsing or staying away in some cases, all of the New York City Comic Con social media oversharing, live claim selling, whatever, I was wondering if the folks that are boasting about books that they've acquired and how they were able to get these deals, do they take into account every little detail as far as what the book costs? Now, not to go through what it would cost you to attend a comic book convention, but if the sole purpose is going and getting access to exclusives, you buy those exclusives online. I saw over the weekend many of the stores that had those NYCC exclusives, you could just buy them straight up from an online store. Some of them give you discounts if you buy them in bulk or in packs. And I just wonder, like, is it really worth it for like a speculator hype person to go all that way to New York? I mean, certainly if they're local, of course, that's even better. But I wonder if some of them are traveling a great distance just to be there to get exclusives or to get exclusive signatures or some sort of exclusive access. I saw so many folks just holding up their badge that says exhibitor, and they were so proud of themselves, and that's great. But I wonder if then when they go to flip those books and hype them on their live claim sales or YouTube auctions or whatever, I wonder if they're really keeping track of what it costs to acquire that book. Now, I certainly don't care if they lose money on these books, and I mean, more power to them if it's just for fun. I don't really know or understand it. But I selfishly look at my own collection and I just start to think to myself, am I really being honest with what it costs to acquire these books? When I'm buying online, I'm not spending any additional money, but I guess you could roll it all the way back. Like, what did it cost for me to acquire my computer? What do I pay for the internet? I mean, it's kind of never ending. Maybe I had lunch before I bought the comics, and what did the lunch cost? But anything specifically related to the comic book purchase itself, maybe if I'm driving out of town to visit a couple of comic book stores, what did it cost me to travel? Those sorts of things are always in the back of my mind as far as what things cost. And then when I get feedback about maybe some of the money I'm spending or where I'm spending my money at, and I get told, well, those prices are too high or you overspent, please realize that I'm not going anywhere. I'm sitting here in the comfort of my own chair and desk and trying to make sure that all of my costs or expenses are specifically just around the price of the comic book itself. You know, I'm about to look at doing yet another pre-screen from CGC, and somebody left a comment when I was discussing my pre-screen results where I got some rejects back, and it was a good point that was made in the comment where I paid a price, there was a fee to have that book pre-screened. Now, would I take the cost to originally acquire the book and increase it by the pre-screen fee, or would I distribute that fee across all of the books? It's a very good question, and it's just something I'm thinking about in terms of tracking all of my expenses related to the hobby and just making sure that I'm being honest around, the total cost to specifically acquire the book, so that if I do want to look at any sort of value gains or value adds, or is it worthwhile to have a book graded professionally if after all of the acquisition fees, the grading fees, shipping fees, all of those costs associated, does then it make good financial sense to go ahead and get that book graded? And that's where I'm really trying to make sure that I'm keeping track as much as possible of my expenses. Now, I'm not running this as a business, this is a pure hobby, but I do have kind of a business mindset where if I were to look across the board, am I really tracking everything? All of my storage, my BCW bins, bags and boards, any of these supplies. And just, it has me wondering, like, as I'm organizing the data around the comic book hobby that I love, am I also just tracking everything related correctly? So those were some of the thoughts that I was having as I was getting ready to unbox these orders. And I want to go ahead and do that and show you the books that I acquired. And then I want to compare the cost to acquire these books against fair market values, and also what the values of these books could potentially be if I were to get them professionally graded. And in this case, what's great about these two orders is that the cost to acquire the book was literally the price themselves. I did not have to pay any additional fees to get these books. So let's take a look. All right, here are the two orders that I placed with Atomic Avenue seller Parman. And I'm going to go ahead and unbox the two orders and then kind of show you both of the orders at once. But first, I got to get through these two boxes. They were sent media mail. Neither of them were opened by the post office, so I lucked out there. Let's get these boxes opened up. Okay, I think I made it through those couple of orders. Very interesting with the what Parman did is he created his own little corner area, or corner protection thing with his cardboard. There's still a lot of tape involved, but got through it. So let me get through. There's over 40 comics between these two orders, so I ordered quite a bit, and I want to get through it and show you the books that I ordered here. So let's get to it. The first book is Fantastic Four 271. I'm always on the lookout for these burn Fantastic Fours. Most of the time with books from Parman, it just kind of goes without saying that they're going to need a press. And let me just show you this one as an example real quick of kind of the condition that you can expect. Most of the books from Parman come in good shape, but they are in need of a press and sometimes just a quick cleaning. But there's definitely a stacking crease right there. You can see that. But the spine looks pretty much intact. You maybe get an occasional tick or two. Here's a couple of non-color breaking ticks right in here. Hard to see. But corner looks pretty good. Not too bad. Probably a solid 9.2, maybe 9.4. Back looks okay. Doesn't really need a clean. Maybe you just kind of wipe it down once before the press. But looks to be really, really nice. This is very typical of the books that I get from him, where with just a little bit of a basic quick press, there is a crease there. And that's one of the main reasons why, other than the stacking crease, they're perpendicular to the stacking crease right here. There's a crease, but it doesn't break color. So a very, very nice, I think this is probably white pages, so you don't need a fancy advanced whitening machine for a book like this. You wouldn't, not for a non-key filler like FF271, you wouldn't anyway. But this is very typical, I would say, of the condition. So, like, if you're being ultra conservative, maybe you go with a 9 or a 9.2 because that crease goes all the way up and down the book. If you hit a grader on a good day, this could pass as a 9.4, but with, I would say, minimal effort, a 10 to 15 minute quick press and then an overnight in the cold press, and you have yourself a 9.8 candidate, 9.6 at worst. And that's really kind of how I'd look at some of these books. All right, so I won't do that for each book, but just wanted to give you an example of kind of the condition that we deal with here. Electra Assassin number 3. I get these books often. Frank Miller, Bill Sienkiewicz, just great classic series. This one is particularly tough to get in a high grade because of the darker cover. It is likely to have a color breaking spine tick or two like it does there, but wanted to take a chance on this one. Daredevil 206. I'm finding myself more and more being interested in this character. I'm almost done with the Netflix Daredevil series and absolutely love it. Season 3 is amazing. Daredevil 205 and Daredevil 204 with guest starring Green Arrow. Oh no, guest starring Crossbow. That's right. That's a very cool and unique name for a character, Crossbow. Now with orders from Parman, he'll often have multiple copies. And I've done this before where I'll order one copy of a book and then I'll place an order the next month and it's the same book and the orders end up kind of looking the same. And even though this order is similar to other orders I've placed in the past, I do like to get multiple copies now because these books are like $1 or $2. Why not just go ahead and grab as many copies as he has if it's a good deal? So this is Batman 440 by Marv Wolfman and George Perez, and I just got the 2 copies that he had. And Parman always throws in an extra free book. I did not order this one. This is New Mutants 43. And I believe this is a Barry Windsor Smith cover. And always love that he just throws in a free book. So I always appreciate that. Spider-Man number 10. Wolverine, Wendigo, and Spider-Man together in the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man run. So I love grabbing these. Trying to get these slabbed 9.8s. The 9.8s usually sell for somewhere around $75 to $100 each, so I try and grab these on the cheap, maybe $1 or $2 on those. Same thing for Spider-Man number 3. Same as 10, just that McFarlane Spider-Man series. These are very easy to give a quick press to bump up to 9.8s. New Mutants number 21. This one's a really fantastic Bill Sienkiewicz cover of New Mutants. These books really scared me as a child. This is a double-sized book, and the only thing that means is you probably have to adjust the pressure in your press because it's just more pages. But in terms of value, collectors don't really seem to care about the fact that this cost $1 instead of the regular cover price, whatever it was, 65 cents, 75 cents at the time. But this looks to be in great shape. And now that these books don't scare me as much as they used to, I'm going back and collecting any missing New Mutants issues. New Mutants number 2. And this is a newsstand copy from 1983. The thing about ordering from Parman is he doesn't really distinguish between direct and newsstand. And sometimes if there is a rarer copy of one or the other, it'll just kind of float into your order. So if you're trying to buy a specific variant, either the direct or newsstand, you may have to contact sellers on Atomic Avenue because they don't break them apart like Mile High Comics. Once they started with the direct editions of comic books, Mile High will actually call that out. So it's a different item. It's a different product item. With Atomic Avenue, they don't have that. And now with CGC actually designated on their label that a book is a newsstand edition, that might be important to you. I'm not a direct to newsstand kind of person. I don't really care. I just love the books. And I understand the community does look at those as variants. So that's fine. I'm just pointing that out in case you order books and like, why are these newsstands? Why are they directs? It's actually quite random. Now, I remember when I went to place this order, I'm often trying to build an order around certain books. And this was one of them. It's Marvel Tales number 226. The significance here, it is technically like a reprint. It's a reprinted story on the inside, but on the cover there was a run of Marvel Tales that was done by Todd McFarlane, and this was the only one I could find from Parman on Atomic Avenue, so I went ahead and picked it up. This is Marvel Tales 226. Probably not the best of the Marvel Tales McFarlane cover runs, but they're all fantastic. They're all great, so I wanted to grab this one in hopes of getting more down the road. Here are 2 copies of Iron Man 162. He listed this copy in near mint, or stated that he had 2 in near mint, so I went ahead and just bought both instead of waiting to come back and pick up another one later. Same goes for Iron Man 159, and this is the perfect example of how I said the whole direct newsstand is quite random. I just ordered 2. I got 1 direct, 1 newsstand. This is a fantastic Paul Smith cover, and if I'm not mistaken, it's the only Iron Man cover that Paul Smith did. And I love this one. And the fact that I was able to have an opportunity to try and get this in near mint or better, I'll take it. I do notice the newsstand one is a little dirty, so that would require a bit of a cleaning. But the direct looks really, really nice. Maybe just a slight color breaking tick up here, but the spine looks gorgeous. So really happy about that one. Invaders number 18. You could probably put Invaders in the long line of titles that I say I don't collect. And now, of course, I have Invaders books that I'll be adding to my collection. But every now and then you get a first appearance in here or some storyline that's got some speculation to it. So I wanted to pick up Invaders 18. I'm keeping track of the whole Invaders series, and this one appeared to be a good deal from Parman, so I grabbed issue 18. Fantastic Four 349. I think I got 4. Did I get 4? Yeah, 4 copies of this one. When the new Fantastic Four series came back out recently, it was featuring these characters, but also this is a fantastic Art Adams cover. And these were, $1 or $2. I'll show you what I paid for these at the very end, but wanted to grab them. Always kind of really nice, very, very low risk, low investment type books that if you can get it a 9.8, makes it really worthwhile, because you're essentially almost paying the original cover price to get these books. So I got 4 copies of FF 349. And then I also got 3 copies of Wolverine number 38. And again, here's the whole direct newsstand, which is kind of fun when you order more than 1 copy, because then you can see at a glance, like I'm doing right here, the direct versus newsstand. So I got 2 newsstand copies and a direct of Wolverine 38. Great Mark Silvestri cover. Did this book homage ASM 316, or did 316 homage this one? Don't really know. Very similar pose there. I don't know. What do you think about that? I'd have to go back and look at the timeline and see what Silvestri and McFarlane were up to at that time. All right, almost through the larger of the 2 orders. Here's Web of Spider-Man 29. What I loved about this book, this ties into Spider-Man versus Wolverine, which is one of my all-time favorite comic books. I took that book everywhere, and when I realized that this tied into that story, I couldn't wait to pick this up and read it. And my copy that I've had since I was a kid is pretty beat up, as you could imagine. But this one looks to be a nice replacement in high grade. And then another McFarlane Spider-Man 14. Always fun to get a McFarlane Black Suit Spidey cover. All right, so that was the larger of the 2 orders. And now just to continue on and show the second order. For my never-ending quest to try and get Watchmen in as high grade possible, I ordered Watchmen 4, 8, 9, and 10 from this seller. And it's random. I mean, I'm already seeing some color issues here. So, again, always gambling to try and hope and catch the 9.8. But right there in the W, there's something going on there. And this one in the C, there's a bit of like a scratch right in there. So that's not good. But maybe the other ones will grade out. Maybe not. That one has a blunted corner. And this one might be okay. Just a slight stack increase. The tough one with these is this like semi-gloss cover. I don't know why, but it's just a magnet for fingerprints. So I always have to wear gloves with these. But as soon as you start handling them, the fingerprints get on it, and it's almost impossible to get the fingerprints out. This one, too, is a book that will pick up fingerprints. Also dirt on the embossing. This looks to be a little bit dirty. It was a minor investment. Punisher 75. Very, very cool cover, but really, really tough to get in a 9.8 because of all of the embossing and the dark cover. Ghost Rider 15, Mark Teixeira on this cover. This one's just sort of a a 90s classic for Ghost Rider. Great cover. Always like to grab that one. One more Ghost Rider. This is Ghost Rider 5. Jim Lee on cover art, plus the Punisher. A lot of stuff happening in this one that makes it very, very collectible. Another Daredevil book, Daredevil 216. I believe this is a David Mazzucchelli cover. Another copy of Batman 440. It's a little bit of an older Batman book, Batman 322. Really nothing special about this other than it's a bit older and nice 40-cent original cover price on this one. Amazing Spider-Man 342. Eric Larson on cover art on this one. You've got Black Cat the Scorpion. This is right around the time where we're starting to get Cletus Cassidy in story, eventually become Carnage. And really, any Amazing Spider-Man with Black Cat are worth picking up. And then the free book in this order is Marvel's Greatest Comics, number 85, featuring the Fantastic Four. This looks to be like really beat up, basically like a reader copy. So I'll probably flip through it and maybe put it in my pile of books to practice cleaning and pressing on. And then the last book was the biggest book between the two orders, and this is What If Wolverine Had Killed the Hulk, number 31. And this is a direct edition, so I'll have to look up the values there and see if there's a major difference from 1981. I believe the directs were more rare still at that time, but this might be as close as I'm going to get to Hulk 180 and 181. And I know I always say this, I'm not a big fan of What If or those sort of multiverse or alternate timeline sort of stories, but it's hard for me to pass up value, and I did see some value here when I went to pick up this book at the time. So looks to be a very, very strong copy. This is a fun book to get graded and display, especially if you have a Hulk 181. It's just a nice little companion that goes with it. A little bit of color breaking on that corner up top, but a nice high grade copy. Very, very strong. Great book from 1981. It's I don't know if it's double sized. It looks double sized. It has the dollar price tag, so I believe that it is. And the colors on this are really strong. I think with this red in the back, you typically will see some fading on this. It's not maybe not the brightest copy you'll ever see, but really, really strong colors. Very, very presentable, and love the fact that it's direct if you're into that and comparing values there. So let me now put these books aside, and I'll show you the order details so we can compare all of these books against the raw fair market value. And then maybe if I were to get these books graded, how would those values line up in a 9.4 or 9.8? Let's find out. All right, here are the order details for the two orders that I placed with the Atomic Avenue seller Parman. One order was placed June 23rd, 2022, and one was placed August 17th, 2022. And the smaller of the two orders, I paid $92.40, no shipping, no tax. So in terms of my total cost to acquire the book, it was the sale price and the sale price alone. There was no other expense for me related to these orders. I didn't have to pay for a 3 or 4 day convention pass. I didn't have to work behind the scenes to somehow get an exhibitor pass and then feel all special and upgrade my hotel to a suite. And I didn't have to pay for gasoline to travel and so on. It was just literally the price to acquire the book, and it arrived as is, as you saw me unbox those orders. Now, if I'm going to compare the fair market value against the cost to acquire the book, we'll look at column Z here for the first order. And if my math is correct, I distributed no additional cost to acquire these books, so everything lines up nicely at $92.40. And then from a raw value perspective, where I'm comparing the cost to acquire the book versus the values themselves, for the first of the two orders, it looks like I was able to add an additional $33.60 of value to the order. Now, the big winner from the first order is Watchmen number 10. I paid $5 to acquire the book, and it has a fair market value of $21. And again, the fair market value, as I'm currently using it from cover price, is the fair market value as reported for a raw book in the most common condition, the most common raw grade. So the $21 may represent the value of the book in a condition that could be less or more than near mint. It's just the most common grade. In order for me to provide some maybe more accurate representation, I'd have to grade each book and then fit the grade into the particular cover price category in order to get the actual raw book value. But for now, I'm just taking the generic cover price fair market value. So for that one, a $16 value add. The loser on this one was that What If book. I paid $32 to acquire that book, and it has a fair market value of $27 for a loss of $5. But overall, most of these books were a nice gain, $7.30 on that Punisher 75. Again, I think for that one, that $9 fair market value is probably inflated by a higher condition, or it's possible that that $9 represents that book in a near mint or a near mint plus raw grade, but it only cost me $1.70 to get it, so really, really minor investment, minor gamble on that one. So not too bad. So before I plug in the grades and we look at the CGC values, let's skip ahead to the second order. And for this one, I paid $79.65 for this order, and this was the order that had multiples, so it was a total of 28 books. And in column Z, my total cost lines up to $79.65, and the raw value add for this one was a bit higher at $82.35, and I think it's just kind of the aggregate of all of these books combined. No real huge winners here. You could argue Web of Spider-Man 29 was a nice win, only $4.35 to acquire that book, and it has a fair market value of $12 according to cover price. Everything else seems to be in like the $2, $3, $4 range. Here's one, the Electro Assassin number 3. I paid $1.45, and it has an $8 fair market value. But most books somewhere between $1 or $4 a piece, and then just adding them up, it literally just adds up to a nice value gain for raw books. And basically what that means is if I were to take all of these books raw and they all kind of graded out around that 9.4 near mint, I could potentially sell all the books individually, and according to the fair market value, which is based off of reported and final close sales, I could possibly profit $82.35 if I were to sell these books. But the way that I look at it is this is additional value that I'm adding to my collection. So I'm spending some money, and based on the books I'm acquiring, I'm essentially getting that money back plus whatever the raw value total is, and that total value is being added into my collection. Now, the fun part is, okay, now I've acquired the books. What happens if I would like to take these and get them professionally graded? Well, we can assume, even though I know what assuming does, and enter a 9.4 into column S, which I designate my grade, which is what I'm going to assign the book. And if these are all 9.4s, then for the first order, it appears that I would have a nice modest gain, or possibly a break-even sort of situation where I've added $28.38 if I feel these are all 9.4s or above, and I send them off for grading and they come back as a 9.4. The big winner here is that What If book. Even that book in a 9.4 is $117, which again, that's why I didn't mind paying the $32, because even after all of the CGC fees to get the book graded, I would still be adding over $52 of value to my collection if all of these books were a 9.4. Now, no other big heavy hitters in a 9.4. ASM 342 is surprisingly strong at $65 for a 9.4. So not bad for only a $5.80 investment on that book. But, overall, I would say, again, is it worth your time? Because time is money, and if you're factoring that into your cost, is it worth to send all of these books out to CGC, these 12 books, and try to get them all back in a 9.4? Well, of course, we're shooting for 9.8, so let's take a look and see what this first order looks like if all of these books did grade out in a 9.8, just so we can see kind of what is the potential for this order. And the potential for these 12 books is $1,701.38, with, again, the big book being What If number 31 at $378. Now, when I look at it, do I think it's a 9.8 at first glance? Yeah, right in the middle of the Wolverine here in the corner box is a color breaking spine tick. So I feel like that would probably prevent it from getting the 9/8. There's also a little bit of a color breaking tick at the very top of the book. So there are just some issues as is where I'd probably lean at a max of 9/6 if I could get it cleaned up a bit and pressed out. I'd have to see it in more detail out of the bag, but somewhere in that 9.2 to 9.6 range, which is still fantastic for that book. I'd love having it in high grade. So I factor in the chance to get a 9.8 with the potential, and that makes the determination automatically for me to say, okay, this is worth a shot. It's worth the gamble here. So a nice potential on this first order, just to go over a few other books. Watchmen number 8, 285. Again, these Watchmen books in a 9.8, it's crazy hard to get them in a 9.8. So if you can ever find them and you have a copy in person, it's definitely worth a chance picking them up. Same thing with that Punisher 75. I paid $1.70. I'm sure you can find it for very cheap at various places. But if you're able to get that book in a 9.8, even that's $117, because again, collectors understand that particular book is tough to get graded. Daredevil 216 at $129 in a 9.8. Batman 322 from 1981, that's $170 in a 9.8. And then the ASM 342 at $198 in a 9.8. So that's the potential for that order. Let me clear those grades out. And then let's take a look at the second order. Again, if these were all to come back in near mint, how would this order look? And in a 9.4, once the values come in, we can see here that this would not be a good order to send in if I thought these were just generally near mint. A loss of $219.18. So this is an example of how this process does not always work. It's not always a sure bet to send in books to CGC and say, well, even in a 9.4, there's some value. Like, there's not. You're going to be paying more to get the book graded than it's worth. Now, they're not all underwater here. Invaders number 18, which I actually purchased, it looks like in very fine here. If that one were to come back in a 9.4, it's worth $58. It's for a nice gain of $19.32. But all of these are pretty much a loss. Now, in the case of Daredevil 206, there's no value for this book in a 9.4, so I just sort of defaulted to my total cost, which may or may not make sense, but there's no value there, and basically just saying it's just going to be a total loss. So not a very strong order from the CGC 9.4 perspective, but let's see if any of these books top out at 9.8, if we're in a little bit better shape. So the potential for this order, and that does look a bit better, $2,026.17 would be the ceiling for this order. And just to call out some of the standouts here, we've got Web of Spider-Man 29 at $173. Marvel Tales 226, that's the McFarlane cover on that one, $158 in a 9.8. New Mutants 21, that great Bill Sienkiewicz cover at $126. The one that's sort of carrying a lot of the value at basically 20 to 25% of that ceiling is Invaders 18, $429 if that book's in a 9.8. Who knows, since I ordered it very fine, probably not, but could it be pressed up and get close to it? We'll see. Fantastic Four $349. Why did I buy 4 copies of that at $1.15 each? Because in a 9.8, great Art Adams cover. Somebody sees that. I love Art Adams, love the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, Hulk, and Wolverine on that cover. I'm all in. $124. Maybe list it for $90 and see it get snatched up and feel good at a nice profit on that one. $140 for Elektra Assassin number 3. Tough book with the darker background on that one. But Daredevil 206, that did not have any value in a 9.4, has value in a 9.8 at $114. 205 is also over $100 there. So all of those values would add up to a nice potential gain of over $2,000 for an order like this. And while there is a chance to get a 9.8 from this seller, really the value here is getting books that I would say almost all of them are in need of at least a quick press. In most cases, that's really all they need. And then if you're looking at total cost, what does that mean in terms of pressing, right? Are you tracking your pressing costs, your regular supplies? Maybe you had an initial investment of the press itself, but you have to order magazine boards, or maybe there's some sort of monthly expense for you if you're pressing. If you're sending your books to a presser, what does that cost? And are you factoring the cost to get the book pressed, cleaned, shipping back and forth, and all of that? there's just a lot of hidden expenses and costs with the hobby. And I'm not asking for everybody to, show me all of their Invaders books and say, this is exactly what this book cost me down to the penny. But I do think it's misleading if you're just going to go up to somebody and say, I'm finding Invaders books online and they're only $2, so there they are. I'm so great. Meanwhile, you bought them on eBay and you're paying, some sort of like $9 or $15 crazy shipping costs. It's like, are we all being honest with the hobby and being honest with ourselves in terms of tracking all of our expenses and what it costs to acquire all of these books? And I keep glancing over at that "What If Wolverine Had Killed the Hulk," the What If 31 book. Looks to be in great shape, great colors, and maybe now I am a What If fan or a What If collector, or maybe I'm just a fan of that one book and just really happy to have the opportunity to order these books from the seller, and I can't wait to grade these and get them into my collection. Thanks for watching, happy collecting, and see you next time.